If you want help figuring out which lightsaber stance is right for you in Jedi Survivor, then this is the video for you. I spent time playing with each lightsaber stance with every single skill upgraded on the skill tree, and today I'm going to share with you my impressions and opinions on how to use them, which lightsaber stance I like best, and which one you should choose. And I will just say, each of them is brutal in their own way. Playing Jedi Survivor, you're only going to have a limited amount of skill points unless you spend hours and hours grinding the game and playing the combat. So to get the most out of each stance, you're going to want to choose which stance you want to go with early on, and then put your skill points into those, learn some combos, and become an absolute beast. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. You guys like my shirt? It's a new shirt. Look, it's even got the Jedi logo and it's got the thing on the back. Look at the back. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you some advice on how to try each lightsaber stance when it's fully upgraded. And I'm also going to rank each of the stances based on what I like. So I'd love to hear your ranking of the stances as well. Single-bladed lightsaber stance in Jedi Survivor definitely feels the most like Jedi Fallen Order. This, of course, will be your starting point for your journey in Jedi Survivor and is the most neutral of all the stances, doing everything reasonably well, with average power, average speed, average range, and average defense. If you're comparing it to, say, the dual wield stance, the single-bladed stance has more range and defense, but less power. And I wouldn't say this stance does anything too special or too spectacular, but it's a great all-rounder. A charged lightsaber throw, which is one of the abilities you unlock later on the skill tree, can be a one-hit against certain enemies. I personally enjoyed using the single-bladed stance against bosses, just because it felt the most neutral, like I wasn't at a disadvantage if I was trying to shoot them with the blaster stance, or trying to get in too close with the dual wield. This one felt like I could deal a reasonable amount of damage, but also still had great defensive capabilities when I was being swarmed or attacked. Now, the double-bladed stance, also returning from Jedi Fallen Order, feels quite different to how it did in the previous game. When compared to the single-bladed stance, this has less power, more speed, less range, but more defense. And I think they've really developed this stance since its time in Jedi Fallen Order. There's more fluidity to it. I found at times in Jedi Fallen Order, this stance would feel like your feet are kind of stuck in mud, like you're moving a bit slower. But in this game, the stance features more combos and ways of making you feel like you're dancing around your enemies. That said, something I know some people are quite disappointed about, the combo moves from Jedi Fallen Order, where you'd switch from a single blade to a double blade within the combo and vice versa, aren't in this game. At least I haven't found them yet. One of the best features of the double-bladed lightsaber in Jedi Survivor is the saber throw. Once you have this fully upgraded, the saber will actually keep spinning like a helicopter depending on how much force you have, and you can control where it goes with the left stick. Most of the time this doesn't deal a lot of damage, but it will knock enemies over, which allows you to move in for a finishing blow. And a really cool addition to the double-bladed saber in Jedi Survivor is something from Battlefront 2. Cal now has the Darth Maul spinning animation where he leaps forward and spins like a helicopter, which makes this thing great for getting around. Which helps so much with maneuverability and actually feeling like this stance is fluid and like it has some range when you need it to. Now, you can have so much fun with the dual wield lightsaber stance. This is the fastest stance in the game. It's more powerful than both the single and double bladed stances, but has the worst range and the worst defense. They call it a glass cannon. I think you'll find using this stance, you'll be pressing the square button a lot, or just your standard attack button, as the triangle or Y button works a little bit differently. Instead of attacking, holding this button is this stance's defensive mechanism, where Cal will go into this kind of force focus mode, from which he can parry incoming enemy attacks or launch into more advanced combos. Once you get the lightsaber throw fully upgraded with this stance, Cal can actually throw both lightsabers at the same time. And this works two different ways. You can throw one saber and then throw the second saber at another enemy, or you can hold the lightsaber throw down for a charge up, causing the lightsabers to hit all nearby enemies as they spin around. Being the fastest of all the lightsaber stances, this is also the only stance you can actually back out of an attack once you've entered the input. If you feel like you're vulnerable, about to be hit, or your reflexes are fast enough, you can abort the attack by pressing L1 or left bumper. The blaster stance is probably the most unique, strange lightsaber stance in Jedi Survivor.
So uncivilized.
It has less power than the other stances, but more speed than the single and double-bladed, the most range of all the stances, and about average defense. The way it works, to get ammo for your blaster, you need to attack using the lightsaber, and each enemy you defeat will give you some ammo. It also comes with a charge shot, which you can activate by holding down triangle or Y, which I guess you could say replaces the lightsaber throw. This is the only stance to not have a lightsaber throw. Obviously, using the blaster, you're not really going to want to throw your lightsaber because you already have the range of the blaster. blaster. Now, the lightsaber moves and attacks in this stance feel kind of like a traditional fencing style of combat. Think of how Count Dooku uses his lightsaber, mostly single-handed, and a lot of elegant lunges and stab-style attacks. I think one of the best, most unique parts of this stance is the fact you can combo lightsaber moves in with the blaster. So in between using your lightsaber with the X or square button, you can then throw in some blaster moves with the triangle or Y button. And this makes for some great fluid takedowns. One of the best parts of this stance is the quick draw ability, which is kind of like a dead eye. This allows you to go into slow motion and target multiple enemies at the same time, depending on how much force meter you still have. And one of the most brutal things you can do in the entire game is combine this with the soaring lift ability, which suspends your enemies in the air, allowing you to then use the quick draw ability to dead eye them and shoot them all while they're completely helpless. The crossguard stance is the most powerful and I'm gonna say the most brutal stance in Jedi Survivor. It's the slowest stance in the game, but has decent range and also the best defense. Now this thing feels really slow and heavy, kind of like using a giant mallet or a giant axe in a similar Souls-like game. It also has a shockwave ability which you can use after jumping, which you can upgrade to have more range. This does a bit of damage to enemies, but mostly stuns them so they get knocked over and then you can move in for a finishing attack. The charged reflection ability is one of the most fun to use with this. Basically, once you unlock this, if you deflect a blaster bolt back at an enemy, it becomes a charged bolt and deals way more damage, usually killing them if they're a standard enemy or at least knocking them back. This stance also has the most powerful lightsaber throw, which if you charge up can take out multiple enemies all at the same time if they're in a straight line. So brutal. And when you're using this thing, it really feels like you're just slicing enemies left, right, and center. There's something so much fun about moving at a slower pace, but still completely decimating everyone around you. There's a calmness to it, I think. Now in a second, I'm going to rank each of the stances from worst to best, but I also said I was going to give you guys some advice on how to try each lightsaber stance when it's fully upgraded. And luckily, Jedi Survivor comes with an option to reset all of your skill points. The first time you do this, it's completely free and there's no payment, I want to say, but each time you do it after that, you have to pay 1 skill point. However, I found that each time I reset my skills and then fully upgraded a specific stance and then practiced that stance for say 10, 15, 20 minutes, I already had at least another skill point. So it kind of paid for itself. I'd recommend playing the game for a few hours first, unlocking each of the stances. I'm pretty sure you have all of the stances unlocked within 5 or 6 hours of the game of playing through the main story, and then finding a section of the game that contains a consistent amount of enemies, and then trying out each stance individually for 10-15 minutes to get a feel for it. I'd really recommend learn some of the combos, try some of the different moves, and then see what fits your playstyle. But don't be afraid to reset your skills at the cost of a skill point, because you're probably going to end up getting that skill point back just by practicing your combat. Okay, now it's time for me to rank each of the lightsaber stances from worst to best based on my personal preference. And I guarantee this preference and this ranking is going to change in a few days, because this is kind of just how I feel now, and this is how I've been playing the game on my first run through. Coming in at number 5, my least favorite lightsaber stance in Jedi Survivor is currently the double-bladed stance. I honestly never really liked using it too much in Fallen Order, and even though they've upgraded it for Jedi Survivor, it's still definitely not my preference. That said, I'm probably going to come back on another playthrough and try and upgrade it and play through the game using this stance. Number 4, I put the crossguard stance. Practicing with this lightsaber stance a bit to make this video made me appreciate it a lot more, but as soon as I unlocked this, I kind of knew it just wasn't for me. I wanted to move quicker, faster, and this stance didn't really offer that. It's a slow stance. But again, I want to use it on another playthrough. I think with this stance, your timing has to be really on as well, just because you swing a lot slower, meaning you really need to anticipate your enemy's attacks and be smarter about when you're actually attacking. At number 3, I'm putting the blaster stance. Honestly, when I first unlocked this thing, I did actually use it for quite a little while. I enjoyed having the range of the blaster and mixing that in with lightsaber attacks, and it actually surprised me with how much fun it could be to use. I've seen some people criticizing this stance, saying it's really not for them, saying they think it looks slow and clunky and a bit weird, and the fact you can't aim down sights. I don't think it was ever intended to be like that. It's still a lightsaber stance, but if you learn how to use it properly, it can be absolutely devastating. At number 2, my second most favorite stance that I'm currently using is the single-bladed lightsaber stance. I love it for boss fights. I love it for even taking down groups of enemies. It's just simple and neutral and traditional and no fuss, and I feel like I already know how to use it based on my time with Jedi Fallen Order. It's probably the most Jedi feeling stance because most Jedi use a single-bladed traditional lightsaber stance. And number 1 is the dual-wield lightsaber stance. The fastest, the most fun, the most agile, and yet the most vulnerable. There's something so satisfying about seeing both lightsabers spinning around, just slicing up enemies, devastating fighting groups of enemies at once. And once you have this thing fully upgraded and you use the lightsaber throws well, and you learn the combos, it's just so much fun. So please tell me which lightsaber stances you think you're going to use in Jedi Survivor, or the ones you're currently using. And I'm also thinking of making a video with all the best force powers in the game, so let me know if you want to see that, and if you have any more questions about force powers, attacks, the game itself, let me know in the comments. Also, I'm giving away a few copies of the game, so come follow me on Instagram and Twitter for details about the giveaways. Watch this video here to keep up with my walkthrough of the game, and thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew, I'll catch you soon.